Không thì anh làm gì?
Thách mẹ. Tao cho mày biết tay.
Ôi em xin anh, em không dám như thế nữa, em xin anh.
Thách.
Mày.
You've just watched a scenes from the TV show named Sống ở đáy sông, in which you can see how anh Núi teaches his wife Chị May. It is undeniable that the conversation, interaction, and relationship between anh Núi and Chị May on this TV show really cracks us up. However, it also reveals that domestic violence is very common. And during COVID-19 pandemic, we have witnessed a global surge in reports of domestic violence. And with the lockdown orders in place everywhere, home is supposed to be a safe haven from the dangers of the virus. However, for many people, particularly women and children, homes is a dangerous place to live. And you are watching IELTS News. Welcome back to IELTS News. We are Thu Dương and Thanh Văn. Like Ivan mentioned earlier, the global lockdown and restrictions on movement have made domestic violence more frequent, more severe, and more dangerous. Here's a look at some of these statistics from around the world. The French government has offered to put victims of domestic abuse up in hotel rooms and finance pop-up counseling centers in grocery stores after reports of abuse jumped by 36% since the lockdown began. 2 women have been murdered. India saw the number of abuse cases double in the first week of nationwide movement restrictions. In Australia, internet searches for domestic violence support networks rose by 75%. The National Domestic Abuse Helpline in the UK has experienced a 25% increase in calls and online requests since the lockdown came in. And in Vietnam, a network of shelters called Peace House, which aid women and children of domestic abuse, has taken in 2.5 times as many victims as it did last year. Anyone can be a victim of domestic abuse, regardless of age, gender, race, sexual orientation, educational level, or economic status. An abuser has no boundaries for their abuse. However, more victims of domestic violence are women. They are considerably more likely to experience repeated and severe forms of abuse, including psychological, physical, and sexual violence, which results in injury or death.
Một tuần 3 lần ấy, ông ấy đánh mình, ông ấy dùng cái ống tuyếp sắt ấy. Ông ấy vụt mình rất nhiều, ông ấy đánh mình, tra tấn mình suốt từ 6 giờ sáng cho đến tận 12 giờ trưa. Sau dần dần nó tăng dần lên xong rồi đến cuối cùng chị ra đây là cũng bị cầm quắm ấy, bổ vào đầu.
Ngày mùng 7 tháng 12 năm 2017 là tôi bị anh ấy dùng kéo đâm vào lưng, và sau khi bị anh hành hung như thế thì tôi đã phải xin tạm lánh ở ngôi nhà bình yên.
Tối hôm đấy anh ấy đi uống rượu về thì anh cứ chửi bới, rồi là anh bới cái gì anh ấy quăng cái đấy. Cái cháu nó còn ngồi, nó sợ nên nó ngồi xuống góc giường thì là bố mới cầm cái bình nước nọng ấy, bên ném vào hai cháu thì em mới thấy vậy, em chạy ra em ôm cái hai cháu thì cái bình nước nó lao tới rồi, em quay lại em ôm cái bình nước ấy thì nó vỡ, nó chọc ra thì bắt đầu từ trán này chảy xuống, chảy máu xuống và đến tay, nó thành một vết sẹo này.
For women who are victims of domestic abuse, the COVID-19 lockdown has suddenly left them locked up. There are 2 reasons to explain. The first reason is social isolation. This has created a perfect condition for abuser to abuse their partner by isolating victims from their friends, family, and any outside contact. Abusers are able to terrorize and control the victim's entire environment. Secondly, economic anxiety and growing unemployment caused by COVID-19 has exacerbated domestic violence. Many men are taking their frustrations and anger out on their wives due to financial stress. Being jobless is a factor that threatens men's sense of masculinity as they perceive themselves as failing to provide. This makes abusers respond with violence to regain the sense of power and control in their relationships. Enforced lockdown has provided a no-way escape situation for victims. There is literally no place to go and no one to seek help from.
Domestic violence against women can cause long-term physical and mental health problems, and violence and abuse affect not just women involved, but also their children.
My stepdad hit my mom, and he hit me. My mom handed me the phone and told me to call the police. We went to Anselma House. Then my mom got mad at me and said we could have figured it out on our own. That's the first time I went to a shelter.
And Dad pushed my mom. And he said the F word, the A word, and the S word. It made me sad and mad and very, very scared.
My dad was pushing my mom halfway over the balcony. There was cement on the bottom. Mom called the police on him because he kept screaming at her, calling her bad name.
One of the studies found that women who had been victims of domestic violence experienced post-traumatic stress disorder 7 times higher than those who had not. The likelihood of developing depression was 2.7 times greater, anxiety 4 times greater, drugs and alcohol misuse 6 times greater, and the likelihood of having suicidal thoughts were 3.5 times greater.
Most domestic abuse cases go unreported. In Vietnam, domestic violence is widespread. Statistics shows that more than half of Vietnamese women report experiencing at least one type of domestic violence, either physical, sexual, emotional, or financial abuse in their lifetime. So why domestic violence victims do not leave? Why are they often silent? It has to do with social stigma and shame. Many victims choose to stay in an abusive relationship to avoid judgments from others. They are afraid that reporting the perpetrator's behavior would involve revealing embarrassing and humiliating details they would rather never discuss, especially if they have been enduring this treatment for years. Let's hear from one of the victims.
Ở trong nhà tôi rất là đau khổ. Thế nhưng ra ngoài đường không ai biết là chồng của tôi đã đánh lên chửi đêm cả đêm thâu đêm như thế. Kể cả đến anh em ruột nhau đến giờ phút này nhiều lần mọi người có chắc là tại làm sao như thế mà không nói, nhưng mà bảo thôi bây giờ nói ra để làm gì, nói ra để cho mọi người cười, tôi xấu hổ, tôi không dám đi đến đâu cả, tôi không dám kể cả trong ngoại nhà tôi cũng không dám vào nhiều, tôi xấu hổ lắm.
Also in Vietnam, women often put their children first, sacrificing their own safety. They would rather live with bad spouse in order to maintain a family for their children.
And I could say another reason victims often remain silent is due to societal acceptance of domestic violence. Let's go back to the story of anh Núi and chị May. Reading some of the comments in the comment section, it is easy to spot how tolerant of domestic violence people are, considering slapping and beating chị May is an appropriate way to gratify an insolent wife. It looks like in a certain situations, domestic violence is societally accepted.
It's important to remember that domestic violence has been an ongoing global pandemic long before the COVID-19 outbreak. We need to encourage more open public discussion about the impact of domestic violence in our society and to build awareness, identify abusers, and take action to prevent abusive behaviors.
Speaking out against even the most minor forms of domestic violence is of the utmost importance, and if you think you are a victim or you are witnessing somebody else being traumatized, then empowering them to take a stance against it is the first and foremost effective solution. And that is IELTS News. Goodbye for now.